The impacts of waves, part 3. Beach drift. This is a movement of sand along a beach following the dominant current, which is known as the longshore current in an area. As I mentioned when I defined shore, shoreline, coast, coastline, the coastal environment is the place where the most rapid evolution of the landscape occurs. One of the things that human beings do to try and stop this, as if we could do that. But what we try to do is we create things called coastal armaments. These are designed to prevent the oceanic environment from negatively affecting the human landscape. So in other words, we're going to fight against nature. Ultimately, guess who wins that battle every single time? But you know, that's not going to stop us from trying. We're people. Let's take a look. This is a diagram of beach drift. And if you look, first of all, the red arrow over here indicates what's known as the longshore current. The longshore current is the dominant current in an area. In the case of California, our current overwhelmingly flows from north to south. As you're probably aware, Los Angeles is at 34 degrees north. We are much closer to the equator than we are to the North Pole. Nevertheless, we have a relatively cold oceanic environment because our current is coming from Alaska. So that means that most things are going to flow from north to south in the ocean along the coastline of the western part of North America. If you look at these black arrows right here, you can see that what's going to happen is this. The dominant break of the waves is going to follow that longshore current, which means the waves are going to break like this up onto the beach, and then the water is going to wash back out, pulled by gravity. Now, the reason the waves are going to break at an angle coming up on the beach like this line, this line, this line, this line, these arrows here, is because the wave energy is able to push the water up onto the coastline. However, once that wave energy is expended on the coastline, the water is just going to be pulled directly back by gravity, at least in this particular circumstance. As we know from before, a rip current can cause something else to happen, but just under a very normal circumstance. What's going to happen is the water is going to wash up here, then it's going to wash back out, then wash up here, then back out, then wash up like that. If you're a little grain of sand right here, what's going to happen to you is you're going to be blown up onto the coastline by the wave, and then you're going to be pulled back into the ocean, then knocked back onto the coastline, then pulled back. And so what's happening is, like that arrow is indicating, the beach is constantly moving. Now, in some places, that doesn't matter. But if you live in Southern California, this picture is taken over Redondo Beach. If you live in Southern California, we don't want the beach to get away, because there's an entire economy there. Some very wealthy people have houses there. People go down to the beach and, they sit and watch the sunset, or they have a drink, or they walk along the beach with their significant other, or whatever, and spend money. So we don't want the beach disappearing. As a result of that, we create these things called coastal armaments. Armaments. I need to be able to speak correctly. Blah, 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 blah. There we go, I'm better. And one of these is called a groin. A groin is designed to prevent beach drift, which you can see that white arrow pointing at it, which is either a pile of rocks or a wall that's built out into the ocean to stop the sand from getting away. The problem with it, as you can see, is this. The sand tends to pile up on one side of the groin, and then the other side of the beach gets all thinned out, which is a beach that nobody wants to go to. You'd be embarrassed to be hanging out at that beach. You want a nice, thick, fat beach like this. Right? But the problem is that when you build groins, you're going to prevent the sand from getting away, but at the same time, you thin out the side of the beach that is not the side that's facing into the dominant longshore current. Another thing human beings build is called a breakwater. This is over the port of Long Beach and the port of Los Angeles. A breakwater is either a pile of rocks or a wall, and it's designed to keep a harbor safe. In other words, what happens is during a storm, the waves would come in and they would knock things around in the harbor. When you build a breakwater, what ends up happening is as the wave energy is coming in, it hits the breakwater and all of the wave energy is expended on the breakwater rather than being expended along the coastline where the harbor's at. Now, in the case of Long Beach, this was built in the beginning of the 20th century, maybe like the 1930s, because there was a naval shipyard there and the ports were beginning to grow. And as a result of that, what ends up happening is because the LA River empties into this area here, what ends up happening is that area is all polluted on the backside, the land side of the breakwater, because that water doesn't mix very well with the rest of the global ocean, in addition to the oil that comes out of the ships and every other bit of pollution that could go into the water there. Because of that, there's been a movement to get rid of the breakwater along the Los Angeles and Long Beach harbors. There was a movement really that looked like it was going to make it happen in the 2030s, but now that looks like it's going to go away. With sea level rising, the people have really nice houses on the peninsula in Long Beach and Naples Island. They don't want this to happen, and their houses are worth millions and millions of dollars, including the last time I checked, the 2 surviving members of Sublime live there. So they probably don't want this to happen, and the breakwater as a result of that's not going to come down. But in the beginning of the 20th century, in Long Beach, there were waves. You could see them back there. This is along Pine Avenue, where there's no pier anymore, but there was a pier at that point. And you can see it was a very surfable beach at one point. And surfers have been trying to get this to happen all over again by taking down the breakwater, but I don't think this is ever going to happen. A jetty is designed to provide a safe entrance to a harbor. And you can see, once again, it's rocks or a wall that's built out into the ocean. And it goes out beyond a depth that's equal to 1/2 of one wavelength, with the result being that a ship can be out in the water, and during a storm or heavy waves, it can just get into between these 2 jetties and then sail in, and it doesn't have to be worrying about being thrown up against the coastline. This is at Corona del Mar, and what it does is over here you have the harbor for Corona del Mar, but you can go in and out through the jetties, and that allows the ships to go in and out without any problems happening.